Welcome everybody. So I am back with a brand new YouTube video. This is going to be for Solo, a Star Wars story. Now, I haven't really been uploading too many videos lately, so I figured that since I got back from a long extended vacation over the holidays and just now getting back home and getting the swing of things, that I would bring to you guys my thoughts on Solo, a Star Wars story. So Solo Star Wars story pretty much takes place in between the events of Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope, and you see young Han Solo, played by Alden Ehrenreich, kind of taking the role as sort of a renegade. He's doing deals for other people, such as Jabba the Hutt and other crime bosses. And this movie sits him years ago, where he is doing things for the love of his life, which is played by Emilia Clarke. And there's a lot of issues with this movie in terms of the pacing, as well as sort of the story arc of some of the characters. I know that's not Ron Howard's fault. I know that it's the fault of the fact that Lord and Miller were originally set to come and sort of direct this movie. Lord and Miller being of the fame of 22 Jump Street and 21 Jump Street. And they're fired because there's some issues with Kathleen Kennedy and some of the things that she wanted for Solo, a Star Wars story. So Ron Howard was brought in to kind of fix the things that they had kind of broken in her eyes. And we're going to get into a little bit of that later. I know Ron Howard's a really great director when given a chance and when given the time. So I don't fault him for the failures of this movie. I don't fault anyone except for the fact that Kathleen Kennedy pulled the original two directors that she originally had faith in. And so that's one of the reasons why I didn't like this movie as much as I probably would have, is it didn't feel like it had, sort of a cohesive story to it. It looked like there were some scenes that were shot, and then Ron Howard kind of came in and sort of updated it and made it look a little bit better for the film. Case in point, the Kessel Run scene seemed a little bit disjointed in places. And that was one of my favorite shots of the film, is seeing the Kessel Run for the first time. Now, I know there's going to be people that have issues with it because, they just basically take a shortcut through the Kessel Run, and that's how they're able to make the faster time, or how Han Solo, anyway, is able to make a faster time. But that's all towards the end of the film, so we're going to talk about sort of the plot of this movie. So basically what happens is Alden Ehrenreich, or Han Solo as they called him in the movie, is basically doing these jobs with Emilia Clarke, his love interest and future partner, hopefully, within the film's storyline. But things get complicated when they get sort of to a military blockade, and they're not allowed to be with each other, and they're kind of split apart. In the course of the story, she goes to work for this crime syndicate that's played by the Vision. I forget his name offhand. And then he kind of does other jobs for people like Lando and Jabba the Hutt and things like that along the way. And it's a really interesting story, but they could have done so much better with it. I think if they had taken more time, if they kind of delayed the movie back and given Ron Howard the complete control that he probably could have, if he wanted to make this movie a lot better. Purportedly, Ron Howard kind of redirected 90% of this film, so about 10% of the original film is in this, and it feels kind of like it, because there's parts in this movie that feel like they should have had more character development than they did, one of which being the train heist sequence, when Han Solo is doing a job for the crime syndicate boss, and one of the main characters dies like 10 minutes into the start of the film. It's like, why did you even have that character 10 to 15 minutes in the film get killed off when we didn't get time to kind of connect with that character in a deeper emotional level? And they do that a lot with these movies. They do that a lot with Solo, where they have a couple characters that you see at the beginning of the film, and they don't have that much character development, like the character that Woody Harrelson plays in the movie. Woody Harrelson plays Beckett, which is this guy that's, kind of similar to Han Solo, and he's kind of being his mentor in a way to the kid, teaching him the ropes so that eventually he can go off and do his own jobs, because Solo wants to be like the best pilot in the galaxy and everything that you've seen in countless trailers and everything. One of the issues I had with the movie is that I didn't like the fact that basically the way that Han Solo gets his name is the fact that Solo means that he has nobody, that basically he's sort of like the loner character, which he is, and the Imperial officer, in the blockade, is basically, what, we're going to just call you Solo, and then he just writes it down on a sheet of paper, and then off he goes pretty much, and I find that to be kind of lame. Like, it would have been cool that Solo was actually his name, and there's some sort of meaning behind it, but they didn't really give him that sort of meaning for the film. Um, I know I'm getting to a lot of negatives, but I really did like Lando Calrissian. I thought he did a really good job with the role that he was given. There was no pansexuality in this film. I think that they kind of overdid it with that for the marketing in this movie, which was terrible. It was just awful because they waited to like the last second to start marketing this movie, and that kind of pissed me off a little bit because it's like, well, when's the trailer gonna drop? Like they haven't dropped the trailer, I haven't seen anything for it, and then finally at the last second they're like, oh, all guns blazing, we're gonna just shoehorn all this marketing at the last second. That just shows that you're not confident with the story that you've got, that you're not confident with the property that you've got. Like Han Solo is an iconic Star Wars character. Like he's one of the biggest aside from like Luke and Lando, Leia, and all the other characters that have come in the original trilogy. And this movie is nowhere near as good as the original trilogy, but this movie is definitely not as bad. I hear a lot of things online where they're saying that Solo is bad. It's not bad at all. It's just not very good. And part of that has to do with the production problems of this film. But in any case, let's go back to the story. So, one of the other things that I didn't like was the droid. Her name is L337. She's basically supposed to be like an SJW droid that kind of preaches about how locking droids away is wrong and everything, which it's perfectly normal in that universe for people to have slave robots and stuff because R2D2 is basically serving his master and doing so out of the will of his own sort of robot soul, if there actually is one in R2D2, and not because he's a slave or anything like that for the film. I thought that was kind of a what the fuck kind of move. Is like you first see her kind of yelling at this cage, and there's two robots kind of going at it and stuff, and immediately I'm like, I'm gonna hate this character. It's gonna be one of the worst characters ever. And she was like one of the only annoying things about the film for me was the fact that her character was even in there in the first place. But luckily, she gets killed off, midway through the film, so you don't have that much story time with her. That's another thing that pissed me off is because there's like this big giant firefight because L337 decides to release all the robot slave prisoners in this area, and they start having a battle between the different people. And Lando kind of rushes out there into the middle of the firefight, and it's like, why are you rushing out for this droid who's annoyed the living shit out of you for most of this movie? And it's like, I wanted Lando to kind of just blast her away, like from the start of the movie, and like this droid is just pissing me off, and like everything about her is just kind of annoying. And then eventually, they kind of like put it like a USB chip into the Millennium Falcon, so she's permanently locked in this thing now for eternity. So I guess she becomes a slave inside the Millennium Falcon, which is the complete opposite of what she was kind of like fighting for in this movie. So that didn't make much sense why they did that in the end. But all bets aside, I did have some enjoyable moments. One of which was the World War II, World War I scene where you see Han Solo in his younger years, kind of working his way up through the ranks of the Imperial officers in the military, and he's doing the gritty, dirty work. And it's like, I would have loved to have a war film, kind of what they set up in this movie, where you see kind of ATSTs and AT-ATs, whatever they're called, AT-ATs, going at it with the rebellion, sort of like a Republic Commando type of story, because that's something I find really interesting, is sort of the war aspect, which is something they've really never touched on. If they did a Republic Commando movie, I'm sure I would go see it tenfold, because it would be kind of like the Republic Commandos kind of hunting down Jedis during the whole Order 66 era within the Star Wars franchise, and I think that's a pretty cool area of the films to sort of explore, because you could bring back some of the other, like the older characters from the previous movies and place them within that film. But yeah, I was kind of like, I kind of need more of that, and I wish that they would have done more with those characters. The one thing that really did irritate me in that sequence was that Chewie's basically locked in this prison cell, and they feed sort of the disobedient members within the Imperial military into this sort of cell, and it's basically like a slugfest, and she's kind of watching and laughing as these Imperial officers in their military are dying, which kind of sucks in a way, but that's the way they went with the story. And then Han Solo becomes disobedient and they throw him in there, even though he kind of suggested something that was pretty ingenious. And so there's this post that's kind of like in the middle of the entire cell, and it's like you haven't thought of that before to try and knock that out so that way you could escape and that this platform would just drop and then you could be free. Like it's like you didn't, like try and go look for that. Like Chewie's been there for so long, you didn't think that he actually tried that, or there's an accident where he may have swung at somebody and they hit the pole in there. But there's just stupid little things like that that could have been done a lot better. But overall, I thought it was a decent time. I didn't hate it as much as I thought I was going to. I know I've gone on for like around 11 minutes, so I hope you guys enjoyed my thoughts on Solo Star Wars Story. I did definitely wanted to bring this to you guys because there were things I did enjoy, but there were a lot of things that I kind of didn't enjoy. But overall, it was a decent experience. It wasn't as bad as something like The Last Jedi, which I now regret making my first review because I was kind of blinded by the nostalgia of the whole Star Wars movies that have come before, and even The Force Awakens, because that movie got me so pumped and hyped, and I really liked that movie. And The Last Jedi is just one of those disjointed messes of a movie that I didn't like, but that's a topic for another review. So I hope you guys enjoyed this review, and I hope you guys rate, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you guys think of Solo: A Star Wars Story in the comment section below. And as always, guys, see you in the next video. Peace.